the second time, and I call the member for Petrie.
Well, thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'm really pleased to rise today to support the Social Services Legislation Amendment, Cashless Debit Card Bill 2017. Many Australians, Mr Deputy Speaker, enjoy the freedom to crack open a coldie, crack open a beer with mates, or have a punt on the Melbourne Cup on the Melbourne Cup Day. But we're all aware in this House that the flip side of these freedoms is that gambling, drugs and alcohol abuse can have dire consequences in our society. And I often see it regularly as a member for Petrie with different families that come into my office for various reasons. It could be family breakdown, it could be domestic violence, and a lot of the time it can be associated with these issues. The latest statistics before the member for Newcastle leaves the chamber from the ABS show that in 2016, 374 people died from alcohol-induced deaths and 1,808 died from drug-induced deaths. Now that, I think, is very conservative too, because it doesn't look at all the other health effects that are related to it. This is not a subject that members in this place should skim over or ignore. Beyond fatalities, there are many other associated consequences, including abuse in the family home, depression and ongoing health issues. These ongoing health issues involve chronic diseases that will and can seriously impact on the person's quality of life and their ability to participate in their community. These issues also hinder a return to the workforce as well. Is someone presented evidence to a member of parliament in this place, 150 members here from different parties, if evidence was presented that a program would reduce drinking abuse by 41%, reduce drug abuse and gambling by 48%, it would be irresponsible for that member not to implement this program. Now, the arguments that I've heard in here today at best are to say very weak, very weak. The word consultation has been used. But I'll touch on consultation again in a minute on the trial programs. Mr Deputy Speaker, these statistics are very real. They're real. They are the real-life changes that have occurred in 2 trial sites for the cashless debit cards. The member for Grey in the House yesterday outlined some of the benefits he saw in the community of Ceduna in South Australia. He spoke of the reduction in alcohol use, illegal drug use and the amount of money spent on gambling. He said there was a big reduction. He also spoke on the benefit of the look of the cashless debit card. That one of the problems with the basics card, it's been reported, is that it came with a level of shame. The basic card looks different. The cashless debit card just looks like everyone else's debit card. So there is no shame or stigma attached. Here's my phone, Mr Deputy Speaker, and on the back of the phone I carry my debit card. I don't carry cash anymore. If I want to buy a $4 coffee, I don't carry the cash, I just PayWave it. And PayWave is pretty well accepted everywhere, and I would imagine that most people in this House would do the same. They carry their debit card. It's a common form. You don't need cash. Okay? It's a common form of being able to PayWave things now. Now, the cashless debit card takes aim at the social harm caused by alcohol, drug abuse and gambling. I must say too, I must give credit to the former Prime Minister, the member for Warringah, who yesterday spoke about the children that this will affect and that the importance of implementing this program right across the country. Participants, Mr Deputy Speaker, in the program receive 80% of their welfare payment onto the debit card. So onto the card, like this here, they receive 80% each fortnight. They can use their card in shops the same way they use existing debit cards, while restricting the purchase of alcohol, withdrawal or cash payments or gambling services. And that's fine. So the participants still receive the remaining 20% of their payments into their nominated bank account. So they can still actually get cash, 20% cash. Now, I just don't understand any member or any senator that could vote against this proposal when 80% of their income, of their welfare income, is put onto a card that can be used for everyday items. Every item, grabbing a coffee, going to the supermarket, buying clothes, buying school books for their kids or new school shoes. Whatever it is, they can use the card. 20% they can take out in cash and can be used for whatever they wish. That sounds very reasonable to me, and not one argument put forward today or yesterday has a lot of merit to it if you're against this idea. In my electorate of Petrie, I spoke to representatives from local organisations that see the effects from individuals spending their payments on alcohol and gambling and not the basic necessities like food and clothing for their family. Mary Ann from Kairos Community College, a community college up in Deception Bay in my area, thinks this program should be rolled out to people, all people aged 16 years and over. With her work in the community at Kairos Community College and the school, she knows too many individuals who choose to spend their entire welfare payment on illegal drugs as a result. And as a result, they're currently homeless. That's what she told me. They're currently homeless. Now, the Parliament has the opportunity to help fix this problem. Won't fix the problem completely. I mean, people will still have 20% cash. But this will go a long way to fixing the problem, and the results, the statistics in the trial sites currently proves it. Lisa from Active 60 and Better thinks that this is a great program. She believes that intergenerational welfare is an issue prevalent in her community, and by helping recipients spend their money on essentials, it would be a big win for the community. She said it really is sad when you see children at the local pub at midday with their parents rather than at school. The fourth proposed trial site is in the federal seat of Hinkler. And I thank the member for Hinkler for coming in and listening to my speech today, but it is proposed that those under the age of 35 living in Bundaberg, Hervey Bay, Childers and Howard regions who receive New Start, youth allowance and parenting payments will transition over to the cashless debit card. And last night the member for Hinkler outlined his support of the proposed trial in his electorate. And that's what we want to vote on here, to make sure that we can get this trial up into the member for Hinkler's area as well. He's right here next to me. He knows his community better than anyone else in this House, and he would like the opportunity. Extensive consultation has been carried out in the member for Hinkler's seat, including 55 local service providers, I believe, and peak bodies on the front line working with disadvantaged families. 2 community information centres sessions open to the public. 26 consultations, Mr Deputy Speaker, with local church groups. 25 meetings with local government. I mean, the member's talking about consultation. Are you listening? Are you listening to what I'm saying? 3 meetings with the state government, the Queensland government, and direct engagement with over 70 community members, either through direct correspondence or meetings. Some 32,000 emails have been sent out from your office. Is that right? 32,000? 5,500. Direct mail, 32 grand. Jeez. 32,000 direct mail, 5,000 emails and phone polling of around 500 people by the member for Hinkler. I think the feedback that he received, sitting next to me, 75% of feedback received with speaking from that community support the cashless debit card. They support it. This region was selected as a potential trial site, and they desperately want it up there. Now, the same feedback, Mr Deputy Speaker, has been received from the government's other trial sites in Ceduna, and I spoke about the member for Grey, and the East Kimberley regions. And as I noted earlier in this speech, I was interested to read the comments of Kimberley local leader Ian Trust. He said, unlike other reform efforts undertaken by government, it has been the Indigenous leaders of the East Kimberley who have led this reform. When comparing trends a year on in the East Kimberley region, the results are fantastic. 28% decrease in St John ambulance call-outs, 20% decrease in community patrol pickups in the first 6 months of the trial, 48% decrease in referrals to the Kimberley Mental Health and Drug Service. So I say to the members that come into this place and say there hasn't been consultation, are they looking at the ABS statistics and are they listening to these figures? Because if they were, they would jump at the opportunity to roll this program out right around the country. Mr Truss said the reason he was one of 4 leaders, Indigenous leaders, to sign off on this trial is because they have been trying the same programs for 40 years and nothing is changing. Now, we come into this place every year and we listen to the Closing the Gap report, and then everyone says, the Leader of the Opposition, the Prime Minister, everyone says, oh well, we're doing some improvement, but a lot hasn't been improved. There's a lot more needs to be done. And when a program like this that produces statistics and with extensive consultation shows real results, members come in here and balk, and I say shame on you. I had a listen to the member for Denison, the pathetic contribution to this debate earlier today. It really was quite offensive listening to the member for Denison. He rolled out the excuse, well, it was expensive. Well, every other time he looks at a government program, he says we're trying to save money. So he said it was racist. Racist, he says. But we hear from Mr Truss how well it is working in Indigenous communities. Mate, it is not racist because we want to roll it out into other trial sites, like the member for Hinkler, where the majority of people are not Indigenous. He said it was an ideological vendetta, but I say to the member for Denison that the only person with an ideological vendetta is yourself, that you vote against government policy, even if it's good policy, even if it's backed by ABS statistics and consultation through these communities where we want to roll it out. And as I say, I've heard from other members here today that there's not enough consultation. They're wrong. They're wrong. And I say to the people in this House today, the members and those listening in the gallery, if you think of people that gamble and they spend their money and they come back and they've lost all their money for the week, they've lost all their money for the week on gambling, how do they feel when they come home? How do they feel when they come home? I would suggest they feel depressed, angry and desperate. What about someone who's an alcoholic that comes home and the member for Denison says, oh, well, 75% don't have a problem. That may be true. Well, they won't be affected, will they? If they don't buy alcohol or they don't go gambling, it won't matter if they don't have access to it on their card and they still have 20% cash in their pocket. But what about the 25% that are affected? The alcoholic that comes home in the middle of the night and wakes up in the morning and the 11-year-old son says, Dad, there's nothing to eat. How do you think he feels? I think he feels dreadful. I think he feels dreadful. And I don't think he'll be able to function properly. And I think that they will, in many cases, need mental health support. Now, this is, Mr Deputy Speaker, a win-win situation. And I say to members that if you don't vote for this, you are guilty of maintaining the status quo. Look carefully at what you support. I understand that members opposite don't always want to vote what the government says, but this was supposed to be a bipartisan program that's meant to help Australians, the very people that we're elected to represent. And I haven't heard any argument from those opposite. And if anyone else gets up and talks about consultation again, give me a break when I've just read out the statistics and the consultation that the member for Hinkler has taken in his electorate alone. And I believe that if this goes through, that people will thank us. You know what? If you have a gambling problem and you can only lose 20% of your cash, and a couple of days later you've got 80% left, I think they'll thank us. I'd ask members and senators to support this bill.
I thank the member for his contribution and